Good evening to you. I wanted to give you an update as far as to review where we've been in this class, but also where we need to go to. I wanted to talk a little bit about types of reading you should do within your profession, and then I also wanted to mention a couple key chapters, from our textbook. One of the biggest points that I can't stress to you enough, and this is really, really important, read the daily newspaper. I especially like the USA Today. My web page is set to their, my homepage is sent to the USA Today, so I'm always reading their articles. But I read the Tribune Review. I get the Daily Courier. My mother gives me the Latrobe Bulletin. I get the Mount Pleasant Journal. I read Time every week. Consumer Reports. A bunch of auto magazines, bicycling, motorcycle magazines. I read Sports Illustrated. So, what I can't stress to you enough, which is so important, no matter what profession you're in, if you're in teaching, if you're in engineering, if you're in medicine, or whatever, is the ability to have a conversation, the ability to make small talk. And small talk leads to other conversations. At WCCC, I often teach a class called Criminal Justice Writing, which is English 166. And one of the detectives that comes in every semester, two or three times, is Detective Tom Moran, who has over 30 years of law enforcement experience, but he handles white-collar crime, he handles homicides, he handles child-related crimes, and so on. So he's really, really involved. But Tom said, was tell students, he said, you have to have a conversation with people. You have to be able to break the ice, and you have to sit there and talk to them. And then in order for them to give you information, they have to feel somewhat comfortable with you. And so, what he said, and I agree with, he said, is just read the daily newspaper. And then you'll be able to talk about sports and about music and all sorts of different items. And so that is a benefit. So I would encourage you to do that. And it just gives you an ability to break the ice. One of our best sales reps that we deal with here at WCCC, and we use Pearson Longman for so many of our books, but for this technical communication we do, for advanced composition, for college writing, is Pearson Longman. And one of the reps for them is Ray Meesing. And Ray and I have often gone out to lunch, but one day I was out to lunch with him, and there were these stacks of newspapers in the back. And he said, Mike, he said, I read 5 newspapers a day. And he said, no matter who I meet, he said, I can have a conversation with them. And he said that I can, strike up something and have something to talk about. And the other thing that Ray does, and he's one of their best salespeople, is he gets back to you quickly. If you have a question, no matter if it's the weekend, if it's Sunday night, he'll get back to you. And I used to teach a course here in the business department called Techniques of Selling. And one of the people that I've had come in was Scott Ludwig, who's probably the top salesperson in our area and one of the top in the country for Prudential Realty. If you email him, if you text him, if you call him, if he's not available, he'll go back to you really quickly. So I think that's important. That's something that I try to do with my classes is I respond to email as quickly as I can. If I get a phone call, if I get a message, I'll try to get back to the student. And I think that's important, and people appreciate that. And what I wanted to talk to you a little bit today is I get this magazine called Ricardo Quarterly. A former business professor here, Joseph Schott, he recommended, he says, Mike, you should get this and read this. And I do, and I read it every month. This month, the article that was really kind of struck my attention is on the Jaguar. And it says, Jaguar Agile Thinking delivers today's Jaguars. And, Jaguar is big in Japan because it's an expanding market, by the way, really. And, many of their vehicles are the 5-point liters, 5.0 liters. And so what Jaguar was able to do is reduce them to 2 liters, but also have the same power and better gas mileage and so on. And it really produced great results for Jaguar. And in China, you're taxed by the liter. So it increased the demand for their vehicles, and like I said, their performance is still the same. I'm sure you've noticed that with Ford, they have the EcoBoost engine. If you want to watch a really good series of videos, I think they were made in 2011. I watched them in our in the in-class technical communication class that Mike Grove from Dirty Jobs he did. You can type in YouTube Ford EcoBoost engine, and they do these tests where they haul logs and drive these trucks around a racetrack with a fully loaded for so many hours straight. They use the engine in the Baja 500. And it's a really good EcoBoost torture test. But the reason why I mention that, it's interesting to see how well that they convey technical information effectively. And this Ricardo Quarterly, like I said, you can order it as well. You can get it online, or you can have a copy sent to your home or office. They had an article a couple years ago, which I found fascinating. The BMW motorcycle, the sports bike, BMW wanted to really be, they're always pretty solid motorcycles, but they wanted to be up a couple of levels on their motorcycles. And so they created a sport touring motorcycle, and they wanted to get 6 cylinders, and they wanted to have a really nice base power band. And if you ride some of these sports motorcycles, such like Hayabusa, the Ninja, Yamaha, I think makes the RX, but they're powerful, but within a certain power band. Where BMW wanted to make it power across from the low end to the high end, so they partnered with Ricardo, and they were able to achieve a really, really great motorcycle, and they're not outrageously expensive either. So that was a good application, a technical application. And then another one that I read is, I don't know if it was Steel or McCullough or one of the other large chainsaw companies. They wanted to make a 4-stroke engine in their chainsaws to reduce emissions, to have more power. They also consume less fuel. So they were able to do that, and they wrote about it in that article. So I would encourage you, to read, and like I said, I would encourage you to read a daily or weekly magazine, definitely a daily newspaper, because I think that helps. I also wanted to mention to you with our textbook, there's a couple of chapters that I spoke about before, but technical communication in the workplace is obviously chapter 1 that you should definitely read, because it talks about your speaking, your writing, different types of projects and documents that you might be involved in. It's a great chapter. It's really, really quite informative. But far and away, the most important chapters in this book are chapters 4 and 5. You should read chapter 4 twice, and the same thing with chapter 5. They talk about the ABC format, the abstract, body, and conclusion. And if you notice throughout the documents in this book, all of them follow that same format. But in particular, if you look on pages 92 and 93, they talk about the top-down format, which is, where you have, and they also continue on page 93, it's a redundant approach to technical communication. So that's why you state the main points in the introductory paragraph, or sometimes they call it the abstract. In longer documents, they call it the executive summary. In the body, you develop and you repeat those. And then in the C, or the conclusion, you review them. You briefly review your main findings and conclusions. But the thing that you need to remember is when you write reports or any type of document, don't be afraid of repeating key points repetitively throughout the document. At WCCC, we're doing middle states now, or we're in the process of it, and we're preparing our initial report. But when we do our final report, it's going to be 125 pages long, and then we're going to have one editor. But we have like 8 teams, 8 groups of people that have submitted. But you have to keep repeating the key points over and over again. The last time we did this about 10 years ago, the one factor that they said is faculty needed to be more involved with administration. So now we have program directors, course coordinators, and so on. And then they also felt that we needed to do a little bit more in our library in terms of our offerings, and so they've adjusted that, and just things like that. But that's, you'll notice, is a redundant, repetitive approach to writing. The other point that I wanted to mention to you was chapter 5 of document design. The point that you really need to be aware of in this class is write short, sharp, accurate sentences, concisely descriptive. Now, the other point that I really wanted to mention to you is the design or the format is as important as the content. I plan a vegetable garden. I've told you that before. I had a student in this class a couple years ago, probably more than that, named Patty. And she wrote written instructions on planting a vegetable garden, okay? And she had, I think, 5 or 6 longer paragraphs, about 6 sentences each. And she didn't really have much formatting, and she only had about 3 or 4 visuals. And I told her, I said, spread this out and make it about 12 or 15 steps. Add a few more visuals, and it'll make a significant difference. And it did, just by adding white space, by spreading it out, by using bold. She added a couple of notes in the instructions, significantly better, significantly more effective. So that would be, like I said, Chapter 5 is important. And Chapter 6 on correspondence, you can take a look at that on letters, memos, writing more effective email. When you get to Chapter 8 on process explanations and instructions, there's a section of Chapter 8 that I wanted to point out to you with written instructions, which we're going to be doing in this particular class. They start on page 223, and they go for about, they go to page 233. So just read that, but it tells you how to write effective instructions, like starting each step with a command, using the active voice, using visuals effectively, and so on. So I just wanted to go to that. We are in pretty good shape overall with this class. The proposals for the consumer report, I'm current on those. The summary assignment, those are coming up. Coming up the following week, you have to do another discussion board posting, evaluate effective and ineffective written instructions, and so that's a fairly simple, straightforward assignment. There is a quiz for this class. It's about, I think it's 12 or 15 questions. It's open book, but open notes. But that'll take you a few hours to do. Don't start that on the last last day. That's like due the 28th. And then written instructions will be due the week of July, like that July 5th, that July 4th, week. So then there's a discussion board posting that's due then. For the written instructions, those are really neat. I've had some really good ones. I've tried many of them myself, just like planting a vegetable garden. But I did making a cheesecake, and I think I made a cheesecake about 5 times until I got it right, but probably gained about 10 pounds from doing it. It has all these really intense, heavy ingredients in it, but it was, quite good. So I've done that before. But anyhow, so this will be coming up. And then, you have to do some resources for your consumer report as we get to the 12th of July. That's pretty easy to do. We have to do a resume assignment on that same week. Actually, I made an error. I had to sign the written instructions. The written instructions aren't actually due until July 19th, so pardon me for that. I have a discussion board to do for the week of the 19th. We have to do a letter and a memo as we get to the end of July, and then the consumer report is due. So I just wanted to kind of give you a flavor as far as what's happening in this class, and what we have to do. So hopefully this class is beneficial to you. I hope that you've learned some key elements of it. These online courses, they can be good or bad. Some students don't like them. Some people feel like you're teaching yourself and so on. But I do try to, give you some videos. I try to give you written and verbal feedback. I respond to email. I give you different sample documents and so on. So this is an ideal class to actually take. It's an online course, and I feel every student should take at least one online course, because today, typically, you're not working in an office from 9 to 5. Many jobs today require traveling, and so learning to read and create documents and do different assignments on your own, I think, is beneficial. All right, that's it. Thank you.